So coming from Max requires a bit of a brain shift. The modeling paradigm is different in Blender. The tools are similar to all the tools you get in the 3D packages: Inset, Extrude, Bevel, all the usuals. But the concepts are different, and using the tools, as in how you interact with the tools, is different. There's a fantastic modifier key-based system in tools like, this shows through in tools like Hard Ops, Box Cutter, and the other modeling add-ons, where you're going into a sort of a mode, and then you're using hotkeys to change different parameters as you're modeling with those tools. And the more I'm using it, I'm finding it to be superior to Max. The interaction with the tools, more modern, more intuitive, feels a bit more natural. And I hope to sort of touch on that and explore that a bit in these next couple of videos. So what I will say is that Blender will create illegal topology, as would be considered illegal in Max. And at first, this might slightly terrify you. You might get frustrated, but it's actually a great benefit, a great boon in Blender to have this. For instance, you can work on a single vert in 3D space and extrude a vertex from that with a connected edge to the original vertex, and then keep extruding verts, and then connect those edges up with faces. Whereas you just can't do that in Max. I'll show an example, but you just can't do that in Max. Verts and edges in space have to be connected by a face, so it has to be at least a triangle in Max. So here's an example of the illegal topology and how to remove it, or how to deal with it. So I would like to mention first of all Machine Tools add-on, which has a mesh cleanup tool, which I use all the time. My hotkey for that is 5. I think that's actually the default hotkey, but I've just gotten in the habit of just pressing this every now and again, and it sorts all this stuff out here. And doubles here are verts that are sitting directly on top of each other in 3D space. And in previous versions of Blender, pre 2.80, remove doubles was actually a tool to deal with this, but they've changed the name. So if you're watching older tutorials, Alt M is the menu, and it's merge by distance, and that is the same as remove doubles. So I definitely recommend this Machine Tools. There's loads of other tools in it, and it's free, so I definitely recommend that. So I select the face here and hit E to extrude, and then just right click to cancel. But in the case of extrude, if I press G to move, you can see here that when I right clicked, it actually did extrude, but it left it coplanar sitting directly on top of the original face. So I'll right click and it's still sitting there. So if I select all these verts, you can see down the bottom here 4 verts selected, and then I Alt M and remove doubles or merge by distance. Now you can see it's removed 4 verts. And if this is quite important in Blender, if this unselected is unchecked, it removes 0 verts, because in Blender you have to be in this mode up here to see through, X-ray mode, show whole scene transparent. You have to be in that mode to select back facing, even if it's verts that you can see, but they're sitting on top of each other, so they're considered back facing. So without that unselected, I will press Shift Z, and now you can see that 8 verts selected. And then if I Alt M, merge by distance, 4 verts removed, even though unselected is checked. So that's just something to bear in mind when it comes to, as I showed in earlier videos, there's no ignore back facing really in Blender. It's that button here, or Shift and Z is the hotkey. So I thought that was an important sort of a thing to mention in the intro to modeling. It's something that might be confusing. And one other thing to mention along these lines is this button up here, Auto Merge, and you can also find that in here under Options, Auto Merge. I always have this on. What it does is, if I go back in and press E to extrude, right click, and now we have that face coplanar again. Auto Merge on here, if I select this vert, you can see it's, they're sitting on top of each other, and press double G to slide, Now if I move it into this other one, you'll see now it's white, it's the active vert. And if I move it straight into this other one, it's going to snap there because it's like edge constraints in Max. I press G was the hotkey, and then I click, it turns orange, and now it's actually merged, welded as in Max with this other one here. So if that's disabled and I do the same GG and move across, it stays white, and that's because obviously it hasn't auto merged here. So I always keep that on as a means of target welding, like in Max, across obviously where the verts share an edge. There's other ways to do it with snapping and that, but that's the way I do it. But as I said, I will also just use that machine tools just to clear those. So these tool settings up the top here in this bar can be accessed by right clicking header and then show tool settings. So just up here, the editor type drop down, right click header, show tool settings, and this can also be found in the N panel tools, and then whatever tool is selected, so select box, it's going to reflect what's here and what's here. So if you don't want to work with the N panel, you can see our tool options up here. It's the same for the transform tools, so you can see that changing then depending on which tool I select. So press N to get rid of that panel, and T is the tool panel over here, and you can expand this out by just dragging it, and you can get text then when you're first starting off. You can see read which is which, and then hover over it and you get your tooltip and also your shortcut. And an important thing to mention as well is that using these active tools here as buttons and using the hotkeys for these tools behaves differently. So when you click into one of these, you have to click on another tool to exit the tool. You can't it's continuous. I'll show that when I start to use the tool. So it's active, so you keep operating on your sub-object selection until you select another tool. So I select box here, but if I select extrude region, and it's going to just keep extruding no matter what I do here, and I'm doing that in screen space, and I can't, I'm right clicking now and it's just bringing up the vertex context sensitive menu, so I have to select another tool to escape that. And speaking of the menus, as I said, that's context sensitive, so 2 into edge mode and same 3 into face mode. And then there's these menus up here, which I'll be going into a lot of these tools in the next couple of videos, and Control V, Control E and Control F are for the floating panels there for these same tools. And all these tools as well, when they're active, as I said, N panel, top toolbar, and then in this tab here, the context tab, they show up there as well. So I'm not too sure why they're in 3 different places. It's handy enough to have them here and here, but I've noticed as well in say hard ops, for instance, they've actually cleverly utilized this space here and put all the hotkeys down here as you're using the tool, which is a great idea when you're learning it, because hard ops was a bit crazy to learn at the start. But anyway, I digress. And with that, what I consider important introduction out of the way, we'll move on to the tools. So as I already mentioned earlier, there's a distinction to be made between invoking the tools through the T panel here using the icons and calling them through hotkeys. So in the T panel here, once you invoke a tool here, it's active, then it stays active, and the only way to get out of that mode is to select another tool, whereas with the hotkeys, once you use it and confirm it, automatically return to whatever tool you had selected before. And in my case, it's always select box, so I always have marquee select. That's why I use the hotkeys over these here, and just generally because I use hotkeys anyway all the time modeling. So I'll show what I mean by the difference, and I'd like to start with the inset tool. And the inset tool is actually a combination of inset and what we know in Max as the bevel faces tool. And there's another way to bevel faces in Blender using Blender's actual bevel tool, which is similar to Max's chamfer, but you can use it on verts, edges and faces in Blender. So I'll show the difference later on when I show that. So I'm going to activate inset faces, and now I'll make a selection. Sorry, I'm in face selection mode here, in edit mode. And now if I start dragging, you'll see a little dashed line appear, and you'll notice I start dragging away here in screen space, and I'm dragging towards the center of that selection. And now if I release the mouse, you know, it's made an inset, and now I can do that again. Just start dragging, and the tool is staying active, but each time I drag, I have the opportunity then, you know, to change these settings here, similar to you would with Max's caddies, when you can apply but still keep the caddy live. So the dashed line is important, because in Max you'd be used to dragging from here, and you don't even have to have a selection. In Max you could just have your inset tool active and then just start dragging, and whatever face you're over, it'll start insetting or extruding or beveling or whatever. But if you try to do that in Blender, you make a selection and then inset face is still active. So if you start dragging from the center, you'll see nothing's happening, and you might get confused by this, think what the hell's going on, and that's because there's no range. You know, even if I start dragging from here, it's not going to work now. So, and the reason for that is because, you know, I'm trying to drag away, which you would do in Max, but in Blender you have to drag towards the center. So if I go into the center and start dragging, it doesn't matter which way I drag because I've no range. So in Blender you want to remember to drag and go towards the center. I'm going to do it again, and this time now I'll hold down shift, and with all tools and sliders in Blender, all screen space, mouse kind of move tools in Blender, and also sliders, if you hold down shift you get much finer control. You can fine tune it, just slows it down. So one other thing you would have noticed up the top, if I start insetting again, you look up the top there where we have all of our hotkeys, and that's something I showed earlier on, something that I really like in Blender, where you can use these hotkeys as modifier keys. So for instance, if I hold down control now, it's behaving like Max's bevel faces tool, and if I let go of control, it's going to be locked in at that depth, and go back to inset, holding control, letting go. So that's with the tool active, and now I'll show it with the hotkey. So I'm going to go back to select box, and I can also access all these tools by pressing spacebar, if you have your preferences set up for this to be the default, and I showed that in earlier videos. So back to marquee selection. So now if I select the face and press I for inset, I'm not holding down the left mouse button now, and all those same options up the top are available. So I'll hold control, and I can press O then for outset, which is just going to sort of reverse the effect. And I think I may have, yeah, I've got some sort of weird doubles there, so I'm just going to press 5, and that should clean that all up, as I showed earlier as well. So select that face again, press I, and start insetting, control to give me some extrusion height, and then press O for outset, and that sort of reverses it then. And the other one then is, I'll select multiple faces and press I, and start insetting them as a group, and then if I press I again, as you can see from the top, you get individual, and I can still then use control and O, but I'll probably get a weird effect, and then press I again to go back. So it's all interactive, and press O again to go back, and that'll take us back to normal. So I can right click then to cancel at any time, which you can't do when you're in the active. And one other interesting feature is if I delete this face and start to inset this, and then if I press that the B for boundary, you can see there that any open edges, it kills off the inset there, so it terminates the edge loop, which is very, very useful. The amount of times, you know, in Max where you have to go in and cut edges and jig around the topology when you just want something simple like that, you know, especially across, we say, a symmetrical object or whatever. So that's the main differences then, and you still have this active here when you're using the hotkeys, but once I confirm by clicking, I'm back to select box as I said earlier. And I hope this sort of makes sense. I'm still getting used to these tools myself, but I'm finding them quite enjoyable to work with. Next up is extrude. So extrude region is the default, and you can just click and hold left mouse button to get your flyout here, and you can see the other tools. So these are all available on the Alt E menu once you have a face selected, except for extrude the cursor, which has its own hotkey that I'll show now in a minute. So extrude region, and this will give us, I'd never used this by the way, I'd always use the E hotkey, but I want to show you, this is a good example of exactly how extrude works. When I showed the doubles that I created, the coplanar face, so at the moment now you can see this widget. Some of these tools have got widgets. I think they're gradually introducing them, and they're not on all tools, but they're gradually introducing them, I think. But they're only available when you use it from the T panel. So I'm going to click the plus, and now it's extruded but nothing's happening. But if I drag the arrow now, you see that it's that coplanar face, and then I can click again and drag, and it's always just extruding at 0. So just bear that in mind. And while you're in this active mode here as well, you can still press your other hotkeys. So if I press G to grab, which is like move, it's moving the screen space, and then press Z, you can see now I'm locked into that axis, and press Y to move back into that axis again. So you can still use those hotkeys, your global translation hotkey tools, G, R and S. So I can press R, and then I can press Y to rotate around the Y axis, and then I'm just right clicking to cancel that transformation. So I'll just undo those and back to select box, and now I'm going to show, I'm not going to show them from this menu, I'm going to just use the hotkeys. So I'm just Control Alt clicking here. I'm going to select that ring, and then I'm going to press Alt E and extrude faces along normals, and now it's just working as local normal would in Max. And you can see up the very top, shrink, fatten, and that's also like using Alt S key, which I'll show. So if I click, and I'll just show that Alt S. So if I press Alt S, it's pretty much doing the same thing. That's shrink, fatten, which is also the tool down here, and you can see Alt S is the hotkey. So I'm just going to undo that. That's extrude from normals. And now if I just control click here to select these, click on one, and control click on this one to select the pick shortest path, and Alt E to bring it up again, and extrude face along normals. And you can see by default it's behaving the way Max used to behave, where it doesn't straighten out your corners. But if you look up the top, even thickness, and I can hold Alt down, if I release it, it goes back, or I can press S to toggle. And all these hotkeys, by the way, are toggleable. That was a strange word. So with the inset, when I was pressing the I to inset individual faces, that was actually a toggle. And the same here, the S is a toggle, and holding Alt and releasing. So it's pretty much does the same thing. So you can pick either of those hotkeys. So I'm undoing that, and don't forget now that these are still extruded at 0. So if I press G, it's still there. So I press 5 then, and now the machine tools magic has worked. So another thing then I want to show is if I press 2 to go into edge mode, for some reason it's not selecting or displaying the edges here. I don't know, I think it's a bug in the latest version, but I have to drag over them. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but anyway, it doesn't matter for the moment. So I press G twice to slide that, constrain that to the other edges around it. And now I'm going to go into 3 to go into face mode again. Select the face, and now I'm just pressing E to extrude. And you can see by default it's extruding locally along the normals of that face. And as I showed earlier now, I can press Z, and then I can tap Z again to go into free translation mode and screen space, and then I can press Z again, and that'll bring me back to the original axis. So that's an interesting way to do it as well. So let's say for instance, so press E to extrude, click it, press E again, start extruding, press Z, now press E again, and start extruding. Now press Y and Y again, and you can see then how you can sort of use those keys to your advantage as you're extruding. And that sort of brings me into press Alt E, and you can see because I don't have anything selected, it's empty. So Alt E, extrude individual faces, is just as you'd expect. So I'm going to select that edge, or sorry, that face ring with Control Alt and click, and as I showed in earlier videos, depending on where your mouse is and closest to which edge, like ZBrush, it's going to select the proper loop, which unfortunately Max doesn't do. It doesn't have that screen space kind of detection. So I'll select that face loop there, Alt E, extrude individual faces, and that's just working as you'd expect with Max's Caddy. So I'm going to select a single face, and I'm going to press 5 to go into ortho view, and then I'm going to hold Alt and snap into the right orthographic view, and you can see there the face is selected here. You can see just that bare dot there, the white dot, that means it's active. And now if I press Control right click, you have this brilliant feature here where it's extruding to the cursor. And you know, if you do it in ortho view, obviously it's going to extrude perfectly, whereas in screen space, you know, it's going to go all over the place. And this our shift drag edge extrusion in Max, Blender doesn't directly have that. You still can do it. So if I press 2, select the edge there, shift D to duplicate it, and then Y to move it along Y. I can now press just E to extrude, E, E, and if I do that in ortho view, it's just going to go on X and Y. So, you know, it's not just as good as shift dragging in Max, but I actually think it's better. Then we also have this, as I showed, Control right click, and that is extrude to cursor. And don't forget also that this is because of the way Blender's hybrid sub-object selection or component mode works. You can extrude everything, as I've mentioned a couple of times and in previous videos. So you can extrude verts, and I'm just pressing E, clicking, pressing E, clicking, and then if I select 2 verts, obviously that's going to make up an edge, and I'll just keep pressing E. So there's loads of options here with extrude. It's not just a basic extrude, it's extremely versatile in the amount of different things you can do, and I hope I've sort of demonstrated that. And then we have all the usual sort of stuff here that you can change after the fact before you confirm. So I realised that shift drag edge extrusion is going to be near and dear to a lot of Max users' hearts, and you're probably disappointed thinking, oh well, we don't really have it in Blender. But you kind of have a sort of a version of a poor man's version, if you like, by using the gizmo here. You can press E. Now that's going to bring you into extrude mode, but you can cancel that and then just use the gizmo. So E right click, E right click, and it's pretty much the same as edge extrusion, just with that extra, because you know you have to press E, then right click, and then use the gizmo. And then if you watched the other video, the update video to part 3, you'll see how you can use these transform tools and use your marquee selection at the same time. So check that one out, because you're not going to be getting that by default in your Blender if you haven't changed the settings. So there's also another option, and this Maxi Vasquez interactive tools for Blender. He has these created for Max as well, not the same tools, but he's a Max user that's ported over some of these tools to Blender, and there's some like Quick FFD, Quick Pivot. There's a few different ones here that Super Smart create, and then there's ones you know, that from Max that are handy to have here. And smart extrude is one of them. I haven't really got into it, but it is possible to do sort of edge extrusions and basically shift dragging, duplicating as you can in Max with objects, elements, faces, whatever, verts, edges, the whole lot. So check that out. He's a good thread there on poly count. Just type that in to the search and poly count, and I think he has a thread there on Blender Artist as well. So we just thought I'd add that in about the shift dragging, so hearts aren't broken. So a third option with extruding is using just the transform hotkeys. So I'm going to go back to box. If you press E now, we're extruding in screen space. So I can just press Y or Z as I showed there. I just wanted to reiterate that in case when I was showing extrude faces, just in case anyone forgot. So the way you can use this then on multiple axes, and I might have showed this in the transformations video. You can press E and then say, and we don't want to go on the X axis, so we just press Shift X, and then I'll be going on Z and Y. So press Shift and the axis that you don't want to move on, in this case it would be X. And then lastly, and it's easier if you go into verts as well, and you can see, rather than, you know, if you can't see the edge, it's just easier to see verts, because you have two verts selected, that makes up an edge. And you'll see that I need to, if you're selecting like this in ortho, you need to be in Shift Z. The show whole scene transparent, so it's going to select the back facing as well. So another thing to note. So press E, and then you can hold down Control and snap to the grid. And because of grid set to increment, and then you can snap to whatever else, you can snap to other verts or whatever. So that's another thing to bear in mind. So I think I'll leave it at that for part one. I don't want the video to go on too long, and I'm glad they've sort of gotten some of the important concepts in Blender to get around, and the extrude and the inset I think demonstrated that nicely. So I'll definitely be going into multiple parts and covering as many of the tools as I can, get people up to speed. So hopefully this one was helpful, and I hope to see you in the next one. Alright then, cheers, thanks, good luck.